Hi everybody, thank you for joining me today. So we're going to be working on our Friday sketch, and make sure you pause here, that way you can get all the measurements, and we're going to be following this one really close. I'm going to show you a little trick so that I can still get my mat, but we'll get to that later. We're going to be using this Carta Bella Fall Blessings. I believe this came out last year. I've only used one paper that was in this, and it was the apple one. So other than that, I still have pretty much the whole kit, or the whole 6x6 pad. So we're gonna go ahead and I'm gonna go through here real quick, and I'm gonna pick two patterns because I was thinking, you know, that's one of the benefits of having double-sided paper. It's paper as a kit. They're all meant to go together, and so by using the pattern that's on the back side, it gives you more options and more versatility. So I just cut the two pieces down so that on one card, because we're going to make two, it'll be the top piece, and on the second card it'll be the bottom piece. And on the bottom, when it's on the bottom, I flip the page over so I can have a little bit of that other pattern for the thin piece and for the one that's like 1 1/4, I believe it is, by 4 1/4. And then that's the idea, this with the same piece, or the same idea with the plaid. So I cut a top and a bottom, and then I use the extra piece to cut off, or to make the thinner pieces in the middle. Now with this one though, I did choose the other piece to cut up because I wanted my acorns to go horizontal, and on the other one it would have gone in the opposite direction, and I didn't like how those were looking. So after I cut that, I took my black paper here and I cut it to the 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. This is going to be my mat pieces. I took an 11 by 8 1/2, cut it in half at 5 1/2, so that way I would have my two base cards. And then this is the part where I'm going to do something a little bit different. I'm going to cut this is very thin, like just copy paper. I cut it to the 4 1/2 by 5, or 4 1/4, excuse me, by 5 1/2. And if you cut the measurements right, these pieces will fit going all the way up on this paper. And really and truly, it didn't have to match perfectly, because what I wanted to do was get all of this glued on, and then I was going to take and trim 1/8 of an inch off of each side, so that way I would have a nice mat with the black paper that I just cut. So real quick, I'm just going to lay down some tape, making sure anything that's hanging off the edge, I just kind of fold back on itself so that it tapes down. And then we're going to do the same thing with the second card. And then it's just going to be the opposite. So now we have the pattern, the plaid on the bottom, and the acorns will go next to that. Making sure I put the tops on top so that way they weren't like floating upside down. And then the orange piece, which is the pattern on the back side of the leaves. Alright, so now I'm going to bring out my cutting board again, and like I said, I'm just taking 1/8 of an inch off of each side. So they're really thin strips, but it'll be just enough to create a straight line and to have a nice border using the black. And then that'll go on top of the card base. So same thing for the second one. Alright, and then once we get that cut up, we're going to go ahead and do our sentiment. I had some scrap pieces on the side, so I just trimmed it down to make sure that it was 1 1/4 inch tall. And then it said to make it 4 1/4 inch long, but I realized that by doing that, it's actually going to be the whole width of the paper. So I cut it to that length with the idea that once I stamped the sentiment, that I would probably be cutting part of it off. So I grabbed my Misty, and I grabbed the So Very Thankful stamp. That's from the Lace Leaf stamp set by Concord and Ninth. It's the one that I'll probably be using throughout the fall season because it's one of my favorites as far as the stamp set. And I'm stamping the ink in VersaFine Black Onyx ink, and then we're going to cover it in the clear embossing powder and heat set it. So once I hit the second one, I'm going to go ahead and set this aside. And I actually had a coffee filter on my desk, so I was able to just funnel it right back into the container. And we're going to go ahead and heat up our heating tool. And then once it was heated up, I kept it moving because I didn't want it to warp, and thankfully it really didn't. And once it was heated up enough, it just really melted quick on the second one as well. So to get it all finished, I'm going to go ahead and attach our pattern paper designs to the mat piece that I created. And I'm just testing it, making sure that everything's going to work out good. And what I decided to do was, instead of attaching it now, the sentiment, I'm actually going to wind up going ahead and attaching or completing the cards for the most part. I'm going to go ahead and get our fronts attached. And then once those are all together, then I'm going to put foam tape on the back of the sentiment, and once I have that on the front, I'm going to trim it down just using my Tim Holtz scissors. So real quick, just laying down the foam tape. And then whatever's extra or hanging off, it'll be cut off once we get it laid down. And I just really try to eyeball it to, obviously, the sketch that we're following. And then once I had it down, I just opened it up and turned it to the, turned it upside down, and then followed the line of the card to trim it. And you'll see it one more time. We're going to open it, trim it, and if there's anything that I missed, I just trim it off, and boom, you're done. And at the very bottom, it had the 3 dots, so of course I pulled out my Nouveaux. And I always do a test on the side because I'm trying to make sure there's no air bubbles. And I used 3 green dots, and I realized once I do the yellow that the pattern paper that I use, it's a busy pattern, you know what I mean, with the plaid and with the leaves on the one that we're doing right now. So I added some yellow enamel dots, or Nouveau drops I should say, to the sentiment. It's not on the sentiment in the sketch, but we can take liberties. The main thing is that it's an odd number, and that's the most pleasing to the eye. So that's why I only did the 2 up the top and 3 on the bottom. And your card is done. So thank you guys so much for joining. Make sure you hit the like, subscribe, and share button. At the very end, as always, I will have video links to previous card sketches. Thanks again, you guys, for watching, and I hope you have a great weekend.